4 people were fighting for their lives in Port Harcourt teaching hospital. All of them ate from the same woman's food. And nobody saw it coming. This is the story of Mama Tari. The woman they called wicked. The woman they said was killing people with her own hands. But what truly happened, will shock you to your bones. Before we enter this story, before I show you what nobody else will tell you, do me one favor. Subscribe to this channel and turn on that notification bell, because the stories we bring here, they will change how you see the world. Now, let us begin. Every morning, and I mean every single morning, at exactly 5:30 am, smoke would rise from Mama Tari's plantain stand at Aggrey Road. That smoke, it was like a signal. Like a calling. By 10 am, the place would be full. I'm talking packed. Taxi drivers finishing night shift. Market women preparing for long, hard days. University students grabbing breakfast before lectures. Even big people, lawyers, doctors, business owners, they would stop their fine cars and come down to buy from Mama Tari. Mama Tari. Uncle Jumbo would shout every morning. This man, he was run like a barrel. He drove down full bus on the Ilioso route, and his stomach was his best friend. Give me 3 plantain, 2 yam, and plenty, I say plenty, of that your wicked sauce. Mama Tari would laugh. That laugh, it was something special. She had a gap between her front teeth, and when she smiled, even the sun would feel ashamed it wasn't shining brighter. Uncle Jumbo, you go finish my sauce today, oh, she would say, her hands moving fast over the grill. Your wife know they cook for house? She dey cook. Uncle Jumbo would bellow, his voice carrying across the street. But Mama Tari, I swear to God, you know they do me like your own. This your sauce, it get something way they make person forget their trouble. The other customers would laugh and nod. Because it was true. That sauce was everything. People would buy bottles to carry home. They would beg Mama Tari for the recipe. Some even tried to copy it, but nobody, and I mean nobody, could make it taste the same. Mama Tari was 42 years old, but if you looked at her well, you would see 2 different women. Her spirit. Young. Full of life. Always smiling, always laughing with customers. But her body. Oh, her body told a different story. Her eyes carried tiredness that never left. Her wrapper hung loose on her waist like she was losing weight she couldn't afford to lose. And her hands, those hands moved with the kind of speed that only comes when you've known struggle. Real, deep struggle. Behind the stand, sitting on a low stool, was her daughter. Tari. Everybody called her Tari, same name as her mother, but the small version. 13 years old. Quiet like morning water. Watching everything with eyes too sad for a child. Mama, the pepper don't finish, young Tari would whisper. Check the bag under the table, my dear. The one Sister Vero brought yesterday. Sister Vero was another trader who sold vegetables 3 stands down the road. In this business, you had to help each other. That's how people survived. One morning, a woman in expensive lace wrapper stopped at the stand. Barrister Tonya Briggs, a lawyer, big woman. The kind of person who should be eating in fancy restaurants, not buying plantain from roadside. But she came, every week, she came. Mama Tari, let me get my usual, she said, but quietly. Like she was ashamed to be seen there. But please, separate packaging. I'm taking it to the office. No problem, Ma. Mama Tari never judged. She just served with that same warm smile. Tari, bring the takeaway pack. As Mama Tari wrapped the food, Barrister Tonya leaned in small. That sauce, you should really bottle it. Sell it in shops. I'm serious, you could make real money. For just a second, just a tiny second, Mama Tari's smile dimmed. Thank you, Ma. I'm fine as I am. But that was a lie. A big, heavy lie. You see, what people didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Mama Tari was barely surviving. The money from the planting stand. It was just enough. Just enough for young Tari's school fees. Just enough for rent in their one-room apartment. Just enough for transportation and food that wasn't bowl and planting every single day. There was no extra. No savings. No cushion. Every bag of yam she bought, she calculated 10 times. Every bottle of palm oil, she measured like it was gold. And the fish, the dried fish she used in her sauce, she bought the cheapest ones from Sister Rhoda at Marwan Market. Because that's all she could afford. That old pot she used for the sauce. It belonged to her mother. Her late mother, who died 7 years ago and left her with nothing but that pot and the advice, cook with love, and people will taste it. Mama Tari kept that pot like it was a treasure. 15 years she'd been using it. 15 years of cooking, burning, scrubbing, cooking again. It was her connection to her mama. Her only connection. Everything was fine. Business was good. Customers were happy. Young Tari was doing well in school. Everything was fine. Until it wasn't. Until that Thursday morning when Sister Vero came running to Mama Tari's stand, her face twisted with fear, her wrapper nearly falling off because she was moving so fast. Mama Tari. Mama Tari. Mama Tari looked up from the grill, her smile already fading. Because when someone runs like that, with that kind of face, it's never good news. Never. Mama Tari. You hear wedding happen. Sister Vero was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling like she'd run all the way from Mile 1 Market. Mama Tari put down her ladle slowly. Wedding happen. Uncle Jumbo, Sister Vero gasped. He day hospital, critical condition. The ladle Mama Tari had been holding clattered to the ground. Jesus. The word came out like a cry. Wedding happened to Nobody know. They say yesterday evening, he just collapsed for inside him bus. Just like that, wham, down. They rush to teaching hospital, and Mama Tari. Sister Vero's voice dropped to a whisper. They say he dey vomit. He dey purge. He dey shake like person we get convulsion. The doctors say he be like poison. That word. Poison. It hung in the air like smoke from the grill. Heavy. Thick. Choking. Poison. Mama Tari's voice was barely a whisper. Young Tari looked up from her stool, her eyes wide with fear. Mama. But Mama Tari didn't hear her. Her mind was already running. Uncle Jumbo ate here yesterday morning. 3 plantain, 2 yam, plenty sauce. Same food she cooked every day. Same food she gave her own daughter. Same food she ate herself. How could it be poison? Sister Vero, you sure say no poison? No wetin I hear. Sister Vero was already backing away, like standing too close to Mama Tari might infect her with whatever this trouble was. I just won't tell you make you hear from me, not from outside. But Mama Tari, be careful oh. And just like that, she was gone. By Friday afternoon, 3 more people had collapsed. Tom Bro, a university student who bought sauce every Wednesday. Critical condition. Mr. Peterside, a banker who stopped by every morning on his way to work. Admitted to intensive care. Auntie Blessing's son, who had eaten plantain just once, on Tuesday. Sick. Vomiting. Shaking. All of them. The same symptoms. All of them. Ate from Mama Tari's stand. By Saturday morning, the crowd at Aggrey Road had thinned from 50 people to 15. By Saturday afternoon, it was 5. By Saturday evening, it was just Mama Tari and her daughter, sitting beside a grill full of perfectly roasted plantain and yam that nobody wanted. Mama, make we go home, young Tari whispered. She'd been crying on and off all day. Nobody go come again. But Mama Tari just sat there, staring at the smoke rising from her grill, her face empty like someone had scooped out her soul. Sunday morning, the WhatsApp messages started. Alert! Alert! Do not eat from Mama Tari's bowl stand at Aggrey Road. People are dying. They say she put something in the food. My cousin is in hospital. Share this message to save lives. The message went everywhere. Family group chats. Church groups. Neighborhood groups. University student forums. Market women associations. Everywhere. By Sunday evening, Mama Tari's phone was flooded with calls from customers asking if it was true. Asking what she put in the food. Asking why. She stopped answering after the 20th call. What could she say? What could she say when she didn't even understand what was happening? Monday morning, 5:30 am. Mama Tari arrived at her spot on Aggrey Road with young Tari beside her, both of them carrying the usual bags of yam and plantain. But when they turned the corner to where the stand was, Mama Tari stopped. Completely stopped. Young Tari saw it first. Her hand flew to her mouth, and tears, immediate tears, sprang to her eyes. Mama. On the wall behind Mama Tari's stand, someone had spray-painted in huge red letters. Wicked woman. Kayla. God is watching you. Mama Tari just stood there. The bag of yams hanging from her hand like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her mouth slightly open. Her eyes staring at those words. Wicked woman. Killer. She'd woken up at 6 am like she did every day. She'd bathed, dressed, prayed, prepared her ingredients. She'd kissed her daughter's forehead and told her, today will be better, my dear. You'll see. And now. Mama, make we go, young Tari begged, pulling at her mother's wrapper. Please, Mama. Make we just go. But instead, Mama Tari did something nobody expected. She walked to her stand. She unpacked her yams. She unpacked her plantain. She lit her grill. Mama, wetin you dey do? Tari's voice was shaking so hard, the words almost didn't come out. Nobody go come today. You know say nobody go come. Mama Tari looked at her daughter. Really looked at her. And when she spoke, her voice was soft, but it carried something heavy. Something like broken glass wrapped in cloth. We go open, she said quietly, because we no do anything wrong. You hear me, Tari? We no do anything wrong. But even as she said it, her hands were trembling. Her hands were trembling. By 11 am, only 2 people had stopped by. And they didn't buy anything. They just stared. Whispered to each other. Took pictures with their phones. By 11 p.m., a group of women walked past and spat on the ground near Mama Tari's stand. Which, one of them muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. She won't use people do ritual. That's why her business was too successful. Nothing good comes that easy. Young Tari flinched like she'd been slapped. Mama Tari said nothing. She just kept turning the plantain on the grill, even though nobody was buying. Even though the perfectly roasted yams were getting cold. Even though her whole world was burning down around her. By noon, Sister Vero came by. But not to greet. Not to encourage. Mama Tari, she said, her voice stiff, for more. I no fit sell near you again oh. People they say if they see anybody associating with you, them go boycott that person business too. I get children to feed. You understand? Mama Tari nodded. She understood. Sister Vero hurried away like Mama Tari's bad luck was contagious. That afternoon, sitting on her stool with young Tari's head in her lap, Mama Tari finally let herself cry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just, quiet tears rolling down her face while her daughter slept, exhausted from crying all morning. God, she whispered to the empty air, to the graffiti on the wall, to the customers who would never come back. Wetin I do? Wetin I do? She'd used her mother's pot. She'd bought ingredients from the same suppliers she'd been using for years. She'd cooked the same way she always cooked. She'd served people with a smile, with love, with everything she had. And now they were calling her a killer. A wicked woman. Her phone buzzed. Another message. She didn't need to read it to know what it said. More warnings. More shares. More people spreading the news that Mama Tari of Aggrey Road was poisoning customers. Young Tari stirred in her lap. Mama, we go survive this. Mama Tari wanted to say yes. She wanted to sound strong, confident, sure. But for the first time in 13 years of raising this child alone, she couldn't. Because she didn't know. She didn't know. What Mama Tari also didn't know was that at that exact moment, 15 kilometers away at Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital, a doctor was staring at a toxicology report with confusion written all over her face. Dr. Aggrey George, head of the emergency department, had seen many cases of food poisoning in her 12-year career. But this was different. Heavy metals, she muttered to herself, reading the report again. Mercury and lead. In yam and plantain. How is that even possible? Her resident, Dr. Kolechi, stood beside her, equally confused. Ma, the pattern is strange. Uncle Jumbo has been eating from that woman's stand for 3 years. 3 years. But he only got sick now. And the poisoning is severe, much worse than the others. Dr. Aggrey tapped her pen against the report, her mind working fast. Where are the other patients? 2 in ICU. 1 stable but still very sick. And Uncle Jumbo. Dr. Kolechi hesitated. Ma, we nearly lost him last night. Dr. Aggrey stood up, her decision made. I want to visit this woman's stand. Today. Right now. Ma, but the environmental health officers will meet us there, Dr. Aggrey finished. Call them. Tell them it's urgent. Because if this woman is poisoning people accidentally, we need to stop it immediately. But if she's not. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Because if Mama Tari wasn't responsible, then somewhere in Port Harcourt, there was something, or someone, poisoning people without anyone knowing. And that was even more dangerous. She reached for her phone and dialed the Environmental Health Department. This is Dr. Aggrey George from UPTH. I need your team to meet me at Aggrey Road this afternoon. We are going to get to the bottom of this. An hour later, Dr. Aggrey stood outside the hospital, medical bag in hand, her team assembled. 2 environmental health officers had arrived with their testing equipment, their faces serious but professional. Remember, she told them as they headed to their vehicle, this woman is already traumatized. We approach with respect and compassion. Let the science speak. The drive to Aggrey Road took 15 minutes through the bustling heart of Port Harcourt. When they arrived, the scene was exactly what Dr. Aggrey had expected, and somehow worse. Mama Tari sat on her low stool, her stand still meticulously arranged but completely devoid of customers. Young Tari sat beside her, both hands wrapped protectively around her mother's arm. The red graffiti on the wall behind them seemed to scream accusations in the afternoon sun. Other vendors watched from a careful distance as Dr. Aggrey and her team approached. The atmosphere was thick with tension and whispered conversations. Are you the woman they call Mama Tari? Dr. Aggrey asked, her voice professional but gentle. Mama Tari stood slowly, and up close, Dr. Aggrey could see the toll the last 3 days had taken. Deep circles under her eyes, her wrapper hanging loose on a frame that had clearly lost weight, hands that trembled slightly. Yes, doctor. I be Mama Tari. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were afraid. You come to arrest me. I'm not police. I'm Dr. Ebia from the teaching hospital. I'm trying to understand what's making people sick. The words seemed to break something inside Mama Tari. I no poison anybody. The words burst out of her, and suddenly tears were streaming down her face. I swear to God, I no do anything bad. This food, she gestured desperately at her stand, not the same food I did cook for my daughter. The same sauce. How I go poison people. Young Tari was crying too now, clutching her mother with both hands. Dr. Ebia felt something twist in her chest. This didn't look like guilt. This looked like terror. Pure, raw terror from someone who couldn't understand how her world had collapsed. Nobody is saying you did anything deliberately, Dr. Ebia said gently, kneeling slightly to be at eye level with the distraught woman. But we found contaminants in your food. Heavy metals, mercury and lead. They can make people very sick. I need to inspect your cooking area, your ingredients. Can you help me understand where this might be coming from? Mama Tari wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, nodding shakily. Anything. Check anything. I get nothing to hide. The environmental health officers began their systematic inspection. Dr. Ebia watched as they tested everything methodically. The palm oil came back clean, the peppers and onions showed no contamination, the tomatoes were perfectly safe. The water source tested normal, the grilling equipment showed no unusual readings. One officer looked up from his testing device, confusion clear on his face. Doctor, everything is coming back normal. No contamination levels that would match what we found in the patients. Dr. Ebia frowned. That can't be right. Test everything again. As the second round of testing continued with the same results, Mama Tari's hope began to grow. You see, I tell you, I no do anything wrong. But Dr. Ebia's scientific mind was still troubled. The patients had definitely been poisoned, and they had all eaten from this stand. There had to be a source they were missing. It was then that one of the environmental officers noticed the old black pot sitting in the corner of the stand, partially hidden by other equipment. Madam, wetin be this pot? How long you don't use 'em? Mama Tari's face lit up with pride. That one. No, my mama own. She give me before she die. Almost 15 years now I don't dey use 'em for my sauce. Young Tari added softly, Mama say he get blessing because no grandmama pot. The environmental officer picked up the pot, its surface blackened by years of use. He scratched at the interior with his testing instrument, then checked his device. The beeping was immediate and urgent. His expression changed completely. Dr. Ebia, I think I found something. Dr. Ebia hurried over as the officer showed her his readings. Lead. High levels of lead contamination in this pot. The officer turned to explain to Mama Tari, his voice gentle but serious. Madam, this pot contains lead. Old cooking pots like this, especially ones from certain manufacturers in the past, they used lead in the metal. When you cook acidic foods, like tomatoes and peppers in sauce, the acid leaches the lead out of the pot, especially if the protective coating is damaged. Mama Tari's hand flew to her mouth. The pot, my mama pot, is killing people. The mercury is still unexplained, Dr. Ebia added quickly, but the lead levels alone could cause the symptoms we've been seeing, especially with regular consumption. But I dey use this pot for 15 years, Mama Tari whispered, her voice breaking. My daughter dey eat this food every day. I dey eat 'em too. Why we no sick? Dr. Kolechi, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward to answer. Chronic exposure is different from acute exposure, Ma. You and your daughter probably have elevated lead levels too. It builds up slowly in the body, causes different symptoms. Fatigue, weakness, memory problems. Have you experienced these things? Mama Tari sank back onto her stool, the weight of realization crushing. All the time. All the time I dey feel tired, I no fit concentrate well. I think say not just because life hard. Because I dey work too much. Young Tari's eyes were wide with fear. Mama, you mean, we sick too? Dr. Ebia knelt beside the girl, her voice gentle and reassuring. We'll test you both. If there's lead in your system, we can treat it. But we still need to find the source of the mercury contamination. As if summoned by her words, one of the environmental officers called out from across the stand. He was holding a plastic container filled with dried fish. Madam, where you buy this fish? From the market. Sister Rhoda, she dey sell for mile 1 market. She get good price, so I dey buy from her. The officer's testing device beeped urgently as he scanned the fish. Mercury. High levels. This fish is heavily contaminated. Dr. Ebia took the container and examined the fish carefully. These look like they could be from illegal fishing zones. Some areas near the oil facilities have heavy mercury contamination from industrial waste. Fish from those waters absorb the mercury, making them extremely dangerous to consume. The complete picture was finally emerging, and it was heartbreaking in its simplicity. Not malice. Not wickedness. Just poverty forcing someone to buy the cheapest ingredients available, to use inherited cookware until it literally fell apart, not knowing that these survival choices were slowly poisoning both her and her customers. Mama Tari was crying again, but differently now, great, heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. I no. I swear to God, I no. I just want feed my daughter. The cheap fish, he helped me save money for her school fees. The pot from my mama, it be like I dey keep her memory alive. I no say I dey kill people. Young Tari wrapped her arms around her mother, her own tears flowing freely. Mama, no cry. You no do on purpose. You no be wicked woman. Dr. Ebia stood, her mind walking through the implications. This was a tragedy, yes. But it was also a crime, not Mama Tari's crime, but society's. How many other vendors across Port Harcourt, across Nigeria, were using dangerous cookware and buying contaminated ingredients, not because of ignorance or malice, but because poverty left them no other choice. But there was still one piece of the puzzle missing. Mama Tari, I need to ask you something important. Uncle Jumbo has been eating your food for 3 years, you said. Yes, doctor. Almost every day. But he only got severely sick now. And you've been using this pot for 15 years, but you're still functioning, still able to walk. Something doesn't add up. What changed recently? Mama Tari thought hard, wiping her eyes with her wrapper. I no, doctor. Everything the same. Same pot, same fish seller, same ingredients, same. She stopped abruptly, her hand freezing mid-motion. What is it? The pot, she whispered, her voice barely audible. About 2 weeks ago, the pot get big burn mark. One night, I forget I'm on fire when I go help somebody, one pregnant woman where they get problem. The sauce burn completely, burn until it black like coal. I scrub arm to remove all the burn mark. Her voice trailed off as the realization hit her. I scrub arm with steel brush and vinegar. Dr. Kolechi understood immediately. You removed the protective layer of burnt residue. You exposed fresh lead metal right before cooking your most acidic sauce. That's why the poisoning was sudden and severe instead of gradual. Dr. Ebia stood, her mind racing through the full implications of what they had discovered. This was a tragedy that went far beyond one vendor stand. This was systemic, institutional, a public health crisis hiding in plain sight. Mama Tari, Dr. Ebia said, her voice firm but kind, you are not a wicked woman. But we need to close your stand immediately. For your safety and everyone else's. You and your daughter need medical treatment to remove the lead from your systems. And we need to find that fish seller. She may be unknowingly poisoning people all over Port Harcourt. Doctor, Mama Tari's voice was small, broken. If I no sell plantain, how I go feed my daughter? How I go pay her school fees? Before Dr. Ebia could answer, a familiar voice spoke from behind them. Maybe I can help with that. They turned to see Barrister Tonya Brick standing there in her expensive lace wrapper, but her eyes were red-rimmed with emotion, and her usual composure was nowhere to be seen. I was at the hospital, she explained, her voice thick with feeling. Visiting Uncle Jumbo. The doctors told me you people were here. She turned to face Mama Tari directly. I heard everything. The pot, the fish, all of it. And I heard the environmental officers talking in the hospital corridor. This is not just your problem, Mama Tari. This is happening all over the city. Vendors using old cookware because that's what they can afford, buying contaminated fish because it's the only price they can manage. Madam Barrister, I sorry, Mama Tari began, but Tonya held up her hand gently. Listen to me carefully. 3 years ago, when my husband died suddenly, I was completely lost. I was working at a law firm that was suffocating my soul. I had 2 young children to raise alone, and I was drowning in grief and fear. Do you remember what you told me? Mama Tari looked confused, her eyes still swollen from crying. Madam, I no remember. I came to your stand crying one morning. My world had fallen apart, and I didn't know how I was going to survive. You saw me sitting there, tears streaming down my face, and you gave me free food. You didn't ask questions. You just sat with me while I ate, and you said something that changed my life. Tonya's voice broke slightly. You said, Sister, I no know your problem, but I know say the sun must rise tomorrow. We go survive. We dey for this Port Harcourt together. Tonya smiled through her tears. You probably don't remember because you're kind to everyone who sits at your stand. But I remember. That kindness, that simple declaration that we were in this together, gave me the strength to leave that farm and start my own practice. Young Tari squeezed her mother's hand as understanding dawned on Mama Tari's face. So here's what's going to happen, Tonya continued, her lawyer voice emerging with quiet authority. First, Dr. Ebia will treat you and Tari for lead poisoning. I will cover all medical costs, all of them. Second, we are going to file a class action lawsuit, but not against you. Against the importers who are knowingly selling contaminated fish and dangerous cookware in Nigerian markets, targeting the poor because they know they have no other options. She paused, making sure Mama Tari was following her words. Third, you are going to teach me how to make that sauce properly, safely, using modern equipment and tested ingredients. We are going to bottle it legally and sell it in proper stores. And fourth, your daughter's school fees are covered until she finishes university. Mama Tari couldn't speak. She just stared at this woman who had once been a crying stranger at her stand and was now offering to rebuild her entire life. Why, she finally whispered. Why you go do all this for me? Because, Tonya said simply, her voice strong and clear, wickedness is not in your heart, Mama Tari. It's in a system that forces good women to make impossible choices between their children's education and their customers' safety. And I am tired of watching good women suffer for problems they didn't create. Dr. Ebia stepped forward, her own emotion evident. And I am going to start a public health campaign. We need to get these dangerous materials out of markets across Nigeria. Mama Tari's case is going to save thousands of lives by showing us what we've been ignoring for too long. The transformation began immediately. Uncle Jumbo, when he learned the truth during his recovery 2 weeks later, became Mama Tari's most vocal defender. Instead of anger, he felt protective fury toward the systems that had endangered them all. That woman nearly died herself trying to feed her child and serve us, he shouted at anyone who would listen. The wicked ones not the people where they import poison into Nigeria and sell them to poor people because them no say poor people no get choice. Nor them we suppose they drag. Sister Vero organized the other vendors around Aggrey Road. Together, they scrubbed the hateful graffiti off the wall and painted a new message in bold, bright letters. Mama Tari, not wicked. Just surviving. #Justice for vendors. The hashtag spread across social media platforms faster than the original rumors. But this time, the story that went viral was different. News outlets, initially drawn by the sensational angle, found themselves telling a deeper, more complex truth: how poverty-induced choices were creating a silent public health crisis across Nigeria, how regulations meant to protect consumers never reached the informal sector, how thousands of vendors and millions of customers were at risk from systems beyond their control. Sister Rhoda was found at Mile 1 Market within days. When she learned that her fish were contaminated, she was devastated. She had been buying from fishermen who had been illegally fishing in mercury-polluted waters near oil facilities, drawn by the larger catches and cheaper prices. But instead of being arrested or vilified, she became part of the solution, working with environmental agencies to track the contaminated fish supply chain and help other vendors identify safe sources. Young Tari's lead levels were elevated but completely treatable. Mama Tari's levels were significantly higher, explaining so much of her chronic exhaustion, the persistent headaches, the difficulty concentrating that she had attributed to the stress of single motherhood and hard work. Both began chelation therapy, and within weeks, Mama Tari began to feel energy she hadn't experienced in years. During their recovery period, Tonya made good on every promise. Together, they developed a properly bottled version of the sauce using safe cookware, thoroughly tested ingredients, and proper commercial licensing. They called it Tari's Truth Sauce. The label bore Mama Tari's gap-toothed smile and a powerful message: made with love, tested for safety. Every purchase supports vendor education and safe food initiatives across Nigeria. 6 months later, Mama Tari stood before the Port Harcourt Chamber of Commerce in a simple but new outfit, her daughter beaming with pride in the front row. The transformation was remarkable, not just in her appearance, but in her bearing. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by a quiet strength that commanded attention. When people called me the wicked planting woman, Mama Tari began, her voice still soft but carrying new authority, I wanted to die. I thought my life done finished completely. But I learned something important: wickedness is not in struggling to survive. Wickedness is in a world that punishes people for being poor. The audience of business leaders and community advocates listened intently as she continued. I also learned that kindness is not the strongest force in this world. Dr. Ebia could have just closed my stand and forgotten about me. Barrister Tonya could have just protected herself and moved on with her life. Uncle Jumbo could have cursed me from his hospital bed. But they chose something different. They chose to see me, not as a wicked woman, but as a human being who needed help. She paused, looking directly at her daughter. Today, I know they sell plantain for roadside again. But I still they cook. My sauce business they help send 10 children to school now, not just my Tari. We have trained 50 vendors on safe cooking practices. We have helped environmental health agencies remove over 200 dangerous spots from markets across Rivers State alone. She smiled that same gap-toothed smile that had once welcomed customers to her humble stand. The real wickedness was never in me. It was in the silence. In people knowing that things were wrong but not speaking up. In systems that failed to protect the most vulnerable among us. But when we choose to see each other, to protect each other, to trust each other despite our fears, that is when real change happens. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes, with several business leaders immediately approaching with offers to expand the program statewide. Uncle Jumbo returned to his downfall bus route, but now he carried pamphlets about safe food practices, distributing them at every stop and sharing Mama Tari's story with anyone who would listen. Dr. Ebia's public health campaign became national policy, with the Safe Vendor Initiative now operating in 12 states across Nigeria. Barrister Tonya's class action lawsuit resulted in stricter import regulations and a compensation fund for affected vendors and customers. And young Tari, healthy and thriving, became the top student in her class. She told everyone who would listen that she wanted to become a doctor like Dr. Aggrey, so I can protect people the way someone protected my mama. Sometimes, late at night, Mama Tari would sit with her daughter and remember those dark days when the world called her wicked. Mama, Tari would ask, you no vex with the people who called you bad names? No, my dear, Mama Tari would answer, pulling her daughter close. I understand them now. People were afraid. Fear can make people do wicked things sometimes. But love can make people do extraordinary things. She would kiss her daughter's forehead, grateful for second chances, for advocates who became friends, for a community that ultimately chose truth over rumors. The real story, she would whisper as sleep came, was never about the plantain woman who was wicked. It was about the world that almost let wickedness win, and the love that refused to let that happen. And in the morning, the sun would rise over Port Harcourt, just as it always did. Full of new mercies. Full of hope. Full of truth.